To NTD Newsroom, I'm Don Ma. President Trump announces new tariffs on copper while hitting Brazil with a 50% tariff. What's his reasons for doing so? No new deaths were reported today from the catastrophic flooding in Texas. With more still missing, the rescue operations are moving towards a recovery phase. We have the update. A federal judge issues a new nationwide block against Trump's order seeking to end birthright citizenship. Where does Congress's powers end and where does a president's authority begin in federal workforce reductions? We discussed with a panel of legal experts. Secretary of State Marco Rubio criticizes China's ongoing involvement in the Ukraine war. Rubio is in Malaysia, meeting with officials from various Asian countries. The chairman of the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party is demanding several universities cut ties with a CCP-backed scholarship. He says it's allowing the regime to steal U.S. technology.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. With at least 120 people dead and more than 170 missing in Central Texas, hopes of locating survivors are dwindling. The search and rescue operation is now shifting to the recovery phase. Curry County officials gave an update moments ago. Take a listen.
As of 8 a.m. this morning, there have been 96 confirmed deaths, 60 adults and 36 children. The number of missing remains at 161. And there remain 5 campers and 1 counselor from Camp Mystic among the missing. Additionally, the state of Texas, FEMA, the Small Business Administration have opened a disaster recovery center here in Kerrville for those who have been affected by the storms.
The streets of Washington, D.C. waterlogged after heavy rain. Eyewitness video shows vehicles crawling along flooded roads on Wednesday. The National Weather Service issued flash flood warnings for several mid-Atlantic cities. In Bowie, Maryland, one eyewitness recorded a massive shelf cloud rolling in. Shelf clouds are usually harbingers of thunderstorms. Forecasters say the mid-Atlantic region could experience heavy rainfall over the next couple of days. Cities are at a higher risk of flash flooding because hard surfaces like roads and sidewalks cause water to run off when it rains. These storms come on the heels of devastating flooding in Texas and New Mexico. In hard-hit Kerrville, Texas, residents held a prayer service Wednesday to mourn the victims of the deadly 4th of July floods. Local teacher Marty Garcia said he came to the service to pay respects to all the victims, among them Tyvee High School soccer coach Reese Zunker.
Zunker was a really tough guy, like one of the strongest guys I know, and creative, like construction guy. So I just had faith that he was gonna pull it out, and I truly do think he tried to save his family and the kids.
Many parents have lost their children to the floods. Thad Hartfield's son, Aiden, is still missing. He's a senior at Trinity University in San Antonio. Now the father is helping organize search and rescue teams.
I know every parent would brag about their kids, but Aiden is a very kind and gentle soul. And I know that his spirit is motivating me to continue this search and stay strong.
Over 300 volunteer first responders have been assisting in the search and rescue of the victims. On Wednesday, crews dug through piles of debris stretching for miles along the Guadalupe River.
I would tell you that this volunteer department here in Ingram, right outside of Kerrville, has been working since 2 a.m.
At an RV park near Georgetown, dozens of volunteers are helping with the cleanup. One of those volunteers is 11-year-old Colton Chansey, who lives at another trailer park nearby.
I just dropped everything in my mind and I said, I want to help. Since I even seen what happened, I wanted to help all these volunteers out here. I just lost everything in my big trailer. It's a voltage. I think it's a 24-inch trailer. Lost everything in it.
In New Mexico, floods swept through the mountain village of Ruidoso Tuesday, killing at least 3 people. Emergency teams organized by local law enforcement and the National Guard conducted at least 85 swift water rescues after people were trapped in their homes. As water started rising, Ruidoso resident Neil Clausen grabbed his pets and headed for higher ground before flash floods destroyed his cabin.
The garage here got lifted up, and that's what smashed into the lower part of my cabin and just took out the supporting wall.
Now local residents are helping clean up. Some of them say the damage and loss of life could have been prevented.
They just needed to really watch, maybe dig the river a little bit deeper, maybe because there's certain zones that are flood, on flood watch always. Could have gotten the people out of there when they knew monsoon season was coming down.
A spokesperson for the New Mexico Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management said the severity of the flood was heightened by a landscape stripped of vegetation in a wildfire last year.
Imports from Brazil and 7 other countries could face double-digit tariffs from August 1st, according to President Donald Trump. It means American businesses may have to pay a 50% duty on goods they import from Brazil. He calls the trial of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro a, quote, witch hunt that should end immediately. Brazil's sitting president says that any tariff increases would be met with reciprocal tariffs imposed on U.S. goods. Trump says he also has informed Algeria, Iraq, Libya, Moldova, Sri Lanka, Brunei, and the Philippines of the upcoming 20 to 30% flat tariffs on their products. Here's more.
President Trump wrote on social media Wednesday that a 50% tariff on copper will go into effect on August 1st. Trump says the move follows what he described as a robust national security assessment. The president blamed the decline of the U.S. copper industry on past administrations, saying copper was needed for semiconductors, aircraft, electric vehicle batteries, and military hardware. Trump vowed that America will once again build a dominant copper industry. The announcement came hours after Trump also informed Brazil that its reciprocal tariff on August 1st would rise to 50% from 10%. Trump's Brazil tariff order came in a letter to Brazilian President Lula da Silva. The president criticized Brazil over what he called the witch hunt trial of Lula's conservative predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro is currently on trial for charges stemming from an alleged plot to overturn Brazil's 2022 election results. Prosecutors allege that Bolsonaro and several associates were attempting a coup d'etat, including an alleged plan to assassinate da Silva. Bolsonaro has denied wrongdoing and any involvement in the alleged coup plot. Trump also criticized what he said were Brazil's attacks on free elections, Americans' free speech, and secret and unlawful censorship orders to U.S. social media platforms. Lula responded to Trump's letter by issuing a statement saying that any unilateral measure to increase tariffs would be met with a response in accordance with Brazilian law. Brazil is the 15th largest U.S. trading partner, with total two-way trade of over $90 billion in 2024. And a rare nearly $7.5 billion U.S. trade surplus. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
A New Hampshire federal judge today has temporarily blocked President Trump's birthright citizenship order for the second time. The renewed decision comes after the Supreme Court barred district judges from ordering nationwide injunctions, but allowed for plaintiffs to seek class action status, which can provide the same nationwide impacts. The plaintiffs, a pregnant immigrant parents, and their infants, requested class action status. At an hour-long hearing this morning, Judge Joseph Plante granted their request, but slightly narrowed the class to include only babies across the country who would be affected by Trump's executive order, not the parents. The administration's limitations on birthright citizenship remain in effect for 7 days, giving the government time to appeal. The verbal ruling will be followed by a written order. The Supreme Court on July 8th lifted a lower court order that prevented the Trump administration from carrying out job cuts en masse and restructuring federal agencies. Joining us now to discuss this is Bobby Ann Cox, civil rights attorney and fellow, Brownstone Institute and legal analyst. Also joining us is Dante Mills, lead attorney and managing partner, Mills Legal. He's a civil and criminal defense attorney. So good afternoon to you both. Thanks for joining us. And before we get to the main topic, I just want your comments on what I talked about earlier. A federal judge in New Hampshire blocked President Trump's executive order restricting birthright citizenship and granting a class action status to a lawsuit representing babies who would be affected by the order. So as you all know, the Supreme Court recently limited the use of nationwide injunctions, but allowed nationwide relief in class action lawsuits, right? So Bobby Ann, I'll start with you today. How easy or how difficult it is for law firms, for example, or advocacy groups to file and certify a class action lawsuit?
Well, excuse me, it really depends on the size of the class. It is very labor intensive. Generally speaking, class action lawsuits will entail hundreds, if not thousands of people as plaintiffs. But you do need a full team if you're going to be a law firm taking on a class action lawsuit like this. You need multiple attorneys, multiple paralegals, multiple legal secretaries. There is a lot of organization that goes into getting a class action lawsuit filed and fighting the suit thereon. So it is not that easy to accumulate and keep tabs on and pursue a class action lawsuit. It does take a lot of resources, but it's done. It is done absolutely, and it's done fairly often, depending on what industry you're in. So this is a case where they want to bring a class action lawsuit in this particular manner for this particular constitutional question. So we'll see if they get classification.
Okay, Dante, can we get your expert analysis as well? What factors influence whether a class action status is granted?
Absolutely. So when you're talking about a class action, what you need is plaintiffs who would have a similar interest or outcome and similar damages. So when you think of class action, people think, oh, or a bunch of people are suing the same person. That's not always the case where they qualify for a class action unless they have similar damages. For this particular purpose, it works because the damage would be you would lose your citizenship. So what they're saying is we're going to bring together everybody who would have the same damage of losing their citizenship if birthright citizenship is taken away, pull them to one class and allow essentially one case to be worked on and determine the outcome, as opposed to having multiple cases where you could get multiple outcomes. That's what the court wants to avoid. So if, for example, every single person brought their own lawsuit, they could have different outcomes, and then you don't have kind of a guideline as to what's supposed to happen. So I do think a class action is appropriate here. Once that class action is started, you have what's called a steering committee for the plaintiffs. It's a group of attorneys who would lead that class action and put everything together. I don't think it's difficult to do. I've participated in many class actions for different reasons. I think that's the right remedy. It's going to be interesting, though, to see if the injunction is upheld, because the Supreme Court did say that they're not in favor right now of the district courts putting a halt to nationwide policies. So I think that part of it would fail, but the class action is appropriate in this case.
All right, we have limited time today, so Bobby Ann, let's get to the Supreme Court decision. What did the Supreme Court decide in the restructuring federal agencies case, and what did it not rule on?
Right. So with this restructuring of federal agencies, what the Supreme Court has said is that the executive branch, the Trump administration, does have the authority to do this. The executive order was put on hold by the lower courts, both the trial court and the appellate court. And that was an executive order that he had issued back in February. And they had halted that and said it was not permissible unless Congress was going to allow it and certain purviews therein. But the Supreme Court has now ruled that that they are lifting that injunction. They're saying that President Trump and his administration can move forward at this time and can go ahead with their layoffs and their restructuring. But they have not ruled on the legality of how they are doing it. And in other words, they have not ruled on what the plans are to specifically do the layoffs. So they today have just said that they are going to allow this injunction or this halting of President Trump doing this, and they're going to allow that to move forward and allow the agencies and the heads of each of these agencies to go ahead and do their restructuring.
Okay, Dante, so put simply, as Bobby Ann said, it means that the administration can now basically conduct layoffs and structural changes at federal agencies immediately. Is that right?
Kind of. Structural changes is going to be an issue. So just so everybody understands the premise here, Congress has the authority to designate these different departments and create these different departments. The president does not have the authority to do that. So what the argument was is Congress set up these departments. The president can't dismantle them. Congress has to do that. The nuance, though, that the administration found is or what they said is, we're not dismantling the entire department. Essentially, we're just, stripping it of most of its employees. But technically, if they leave one person there, for example, the department still exists. And that's what the court said. The district court doesn't have the authority to put that on hold, because the administration can scale back that department because they have the right to determine where they want their focus to be as an administration, as long as they're not dismantling the entire department, because that is the role of Congress. So that's what you're going to see happening. The departments that this administration doesn't want, they're just going to strip them down, leave them in place technically, but there's not going to be anything happening there, and that won't be a violation of the separation of powers.
And Bobby Ann, that's exactly what Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson said in her dissent, saying that Trump's actions are unconstitutional and that, quote, over the past century, presidents who have attempted to reorganize the federal government have first obtained authorization from Congress to do so.
Right. Well, I disagree with Justice Jackson on this. Excuse me. Basically, the separation of powers is established very clearly in our Constitution. And that means that the executive branch, which is, the president is the head of the executive branch, and the agencies do fall under the executive branch, that they are allowed to conduct their business as they deem fit. It is not up to the courts, whether it's the Supreme Court or lower courts they're under. It is not up to the courts to say how the government is run, how it is structured, yes. However, not how it is run. So they can't just reach in and say that, they don't like the way a president is cutting jobs or, diminishing the number of employees in a particular agency. That is not something that a court can step in and do. They don't have that power. It is up to the executive, and by the executive, we are including in there the agencies and those who are running those agencies. It is up to them to decide how many employees they have, what those employees are going to be working on, and any sort of policy conditions pertaining to working for them in that agency. So I do not agree with her dissenting opinion. I do agree with the majority here that this is something that a president, head of the executive branch, does have the power to do.
Okay, Dante,
if
your
I can
response.
Just jump in, though.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it is a kind of a cute argument to say the president or the executive branch has the ability to scale down or decide how many employees should be in each department. Essentially, what you're doing is you're bleeding into Congress's power to establish these agencies. That's not the authority or the power of the executive branch. If Congress says we need an agency to do this, to oversee this, or to control this, that's their right. But the president now and the executive branch is coming in and saying, okay, well, you have the authority to do that, but we're just going to strip it down so it's meaningless. And I don't know if that's what when the Constitution was written, if that's what they thought would happen, where we're going to give Congress the authority to establish these agencies, but just allow the executive branch to make the agency not matter. I think that's a technicality that wasn't intended by the founders of the country. So we are going into a different area here, but clearly it fits under the law. If you say we're going to leave this administration or this department in place, we're just going to strip it down to the point that it doesn't make a difference or it's meaningless, and we're still not violating any constitutional rules.
Bobby Ann, Jackson saying that reduction in force actually amounts to a wholesale restructuring of the federal government.
No, absolutely not. That is the wrong reading. I just have to point out that the Constitution says that the executive branch enforces the laws, right? That the laws are passed by Congress. That's the legislature. That's the legislative branch. And the executive branch enforces the laws that are passed by Congress. Congress is not the one that comes in and says, if the Department of Education has, 50 sub-departments and 20,000 employees in each of them, it's not up to Congress to say, you have to keep 20,000 people working in each of these subdivisions of this one department. It's not how it works. It's the executive branch that gets to say, well, we need to enforce XYZ laws. We need this many people to help us do that effectively. And we don't need these smaller divisions within this larger agency. That's up to the executive branch. It is not up to Congress to come in and say that. Establishing.
But that's not what's happening.
It is what's happening. It is what's happening. They are.
All right.
Example,
Let's do this one at a time. Bobby Ann, if you're done, Dante, please go ahead.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
you can go.
I thought you stopped talking. I apologize for talking over you. But Congress, for example, is saying we need a Department of Education. The administration is saying, I don't think so. So what we're going to do is just scale it back. And I'm going to use some exaggeration, but we're just going to make the Department of Education. We'll leave it in place, but it's just going to be one person in a basement with a stapler. That's what they're doing. That's essentially removing the Department of Education, which Congress had the authority to say was required and necessary. And that is skirting the rules. And that's what's happening here. I just don't think that that's what the Constitution intended. If they said Congress decided we need a Department of Education, then you should have a department that's actually functioning and participating in the way that education is run in the United States, not the administration being able to scale it back to the point that the Department of Education exists, but it doesn't matter or make a difference because it's been stripped of everything and all its resources.
Okay, Bobby Ann, your response, and as well, let me ask you, why does the court feel like the government is likely to succeed in its argument that President Trump's reorganization actions are lawful?
Yes. So the Supreme Court did point that out. That's a great point there, that they did say that they think that President Trump, the executive branch, will be victorious in their arguments here. The reason that they said that is because, as I said, the Constitution is clear. The executive branch has the power to enforce our laws. And part of enforcing our laws is having these agencies to assist the executive, to assist the president in carrying out these laws. So that is clearly a presidential power. That is not a power that Congress holds. It's not a power that the judges hold either. Even the Supreme Court judges, they don't have the power to come in and say, you must keep the Department of Education. You must keep at least 50,000 employees within the Department of Education. You can't fire these people because we need a Department of Education that we, meaning the court or Congress, think is good and affecting change and getting things done. No, that is something for the president to decide. The president and then the people that he appoints to head these various agencies, they decide how many employees they need in order to properly operate whatever agency or division within an agency that they deem fit. That is not something that that Congress can decide or the judges, which is why the judges said in their opinion that they believe that the Trump administration will be victorious on the merits of this case.
All right, we're almost out of time here, Dante. So if you have any final thoughts.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you said. It is technically, it's correct. The Congress has the ability to establish these departments, and there is no instruction as to what exactly those departments have to include or how much staff they have to have. That is up to the executive branch, who is the one who kind of regulates that. So technically, they're right, and the Supreme Court is correct that on the black letter law that the administration will be successful. But I just think the intent of having Congress establish these departments only for the executive branch to strip them completely of all power doesn't really make sense. So while technically they're right, I think practically it's going against what the intent of the Constitution was, and the administration just found a loophole that they were able to climb through and do whatever they want, which is not really what we want to have happening.
Okay, we have to leave it there today. Dante, Bobby Ann, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, State Department is warning citizens not to travel to Iran, especially those with dual citizenship. Find out more after the break.
An underground campaign exposed. The Chinese Communist Party is pouring massive resources into weaponizing American institutions, from U.S. media and social media to the justice system itself. A playbook designed to manipulate public opinion, a threat to freedom of belief right here on American soil. Steve Lance presents the CCP's covert war inside the USA. Tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, only on NTD.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options only at selectspecs.com.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits zero, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Gangjiang Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
The Senate voted 53-43 to approve Brian Bedford to head the Federal Aviation Administration. Today's vote puts the longtime Republic Airways CEO in charge of the agency. Bedford is the former head of the regional carrier that operates nearly 1,000 daily flights for major airlines. Approved for a 5-year term, Bedford will oversee $12.5 billion in funding. The funds will go toward overhauling the U.S. air traffic control system, part of a bill passed by Congress last week. The FAA faced scrutiny after a January mid-air collision between an Army helicopter and an American Airlines jet. The incident near Washington Reagan National Airport killed all 67 aboard both aircraft. The agency has also faced criticism for its oversight of Boeing, which has been the subject of multiple safety incidents. President Trump has named Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy as the interim head of NASA. Duffy takes over a month after Trump pulled his last nominee, billionaire Jared Isaacman, over past political donations. Isaacman, known for flying SpaceX missions, said he doesn't blame the president. Duffy is now part of a club of Trump administration officials serving in multiple top roles, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum. Race and sex preferences are out at the Department of Agriculture. The agency said today such factors will no longer be considered in farm loan or other programs. The move was made to align with the Trump administration's directives to cancel diversity, equity, and inclusion policies across the federal government. The government says the USDA has adequately addressed past bias. It says the new rules uphold the principles of meritocracy, fairness, and equal opportunity for all participants. For decades, the department prioritized enrollment or set aside funding pools for farmers based on race. Less than 5% of U.S. farmers are non-white. A member of Congress is cracking down on a scholarship backed by the Chinese Communist Party. He says it allows the regime to steal U.S. technology. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
The Chinese Scholarship Council, a scholarship program managed and funded by the Chinese regime, is accepted by several colleges in the U.S. Chairman of the House Select Committee on the CCP is demanding the universities to cut ties with the program. Chairman Molinar said it's different than other international programs because of concerns over academic freedom, surveillance of students, ideological control, and potential espionage. He pointed out that students who get the funding must agree to return to China for at least 2 years after completing their studies. And while they are studying abroad, they must check in with CCP embassies every 3 months to report their research output and academic progress. The chairman says this gives the regime a leg up in stealing U.S. intellectual property and is demanding 7 universities to cut ties with the CCP-backed scholarship. This comes as the committee is making a focus of protecting and advancing American AI research.
Will the future of artificial intelligence be led by free nations or by authoritarian regimes like the Chinese Communist Party? AI is not just another tech breakthrough. It will shape our economy, our military, our diplomacy, and our national security for decades to come.
In a letter to the 7 universities, the chairman described the Chinese Scholarship Council as a technology transfer effort that exploits U.S. institutions and directly supports China's military and scientific growth. The universities must respond by July 22nd. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
And join Steve Lance as he exposes a covert CCP campaign threatening America from within. From media to the justice system, a plan to control public opinion and silence a faith group. The CCP's covert war inside the USA tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, only on NTD. New York City street vendors may get some relief if Mayor Eric Adams signs a city council bill that removes criminal penalties for unlicensed vendors. The bill, introduced by Queens Council member Shekhar Krishnan, was sent to the mayor's desk, but he has until the end of July to sign it. The new law, if signed, would reclassify license and permit offenses as violations with a maximum fine of $1,000 and no jail time. Adams can either sign or veto the bill. He can also allow it to become law without a signature. If it becomes law, it will take effect January 2026. Relief in Los Angeles after 31 construction workers make it to safety. The workers were inside a huge industrial tunnel which collapsed yesterday evening. It appears the cave-in happened about 5 to 6 miles into the tunnel. The workers were about 400 feet underground. They were forced to scramble over loose soil more than 12 feet high to reach the tunnel boring machine. They were then transported back to the opening. The workers were brought out of the tunnel in a yellow cage, hoisted up by a crane. Authorities say none of those rescued had major injuries. The cause is still being investigated. Coming up, Secretary of State Marco Rubio criticizes China's ongoing involvement in the Ukraine war. Rubio is in Malaysia meeting with officials from various Asian countries. Stay tuned for that.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had 0 chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons. and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges.
Ariel, we made this here just for you. It has notes from other people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School. College first-round draft pick. On and off the field, we were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Asia this week. He tells Russia's foreign minister that the U.S. is disappointed with the stalling of peace efforts. Rubio also criticizes China's ongoing involvement in the Ukraine war. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pastar has more on Rubio's Asia trip.
I echoed what the president has said, both disappointment and frustration at the lack of progress.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he told his Russian counterpart that the U.S. is not happy with Moscow continuing the war in Ukraine. Rubio and Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Malaysia on Thursday.
But it was a frank conversation. It was an important one. Look, the president's been pretty clear. He's disappointed and frustrated that there's not been more flexibility on the Russian side to bring about an end to this conflict.
Rubio added that him and Lavrov did share some ideas and comments, which can be built on, he says. Now, the secretary is also addressing China's involvement in the Russia-Ukraine war. He says that Beijing has clearly been supporting Moscow in its fight against Kiev. Rubio was asked if he's considering meeting with his Chinese counterpart while in Asia this week. Here's what he said.
Maybe we'll meet, and obviously we'll talk about it. I think, the Chinese clearly have been supportive of the Russian effort, and I think that generally they've been willing to help them as much as they can without getting caught.
Also during the ASEAN summit on Thursday, Russia's Lavrov met with China's foreign minister. The two sides praised what they called the development of political dialogue and practical cooperation. This comes just one day after Ukraine said it detained two suspected Chinese spies, a father and a son. They're accused of trying to transfer classified documents on a key Ukrainian missile system to China. Kiev is also set to sanction 5 companies in China. Ukraine says the companies are supplying drone parts used in Russian attacks on Kiev. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg is in Rome today attending the Ukraine Recovery Conference. He says rebuilding Ukraine will be an enormous yet critical task. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, meanwhile, explains why Russian attacks are becoming more destructive.
The destruction caused by the war is also why the United States is partnering with Ukraine to see a full restoration of this nation following a peace settlement. The United States recognizes that rebuilding Ukraine will be an enormous yet critical task that will have implications on the broader European region.
Russia has also prepared for this meeting. Just last night, they launched another massive attack on Ukraine, mainly targeting our capital, Kyiv. The attack involved Russian, Iranian Shahid drones. These drones have been heavily upgraded to cause more destruction and to be harder to shoot down.
He added that Ukrainians are facing hundreds of incoming drones every day. Just yesterday, Russia reportedly again broke its own record for the largest drone attack on Ukraine since the start of the war. Moscow launched over 700 drones, beating the previous record by over 200 drones. Special Envoy Kellogg says rebuilding Ukraine after the war doesn't just include infrastructure and buildings. He says there must be also an effort to return all kidnapped Ukrainian children, and that Ukraine's veterans have to be given the proper care for rehabilitation back into Ukrainian society. A possible breakthrough in hostage negotiations, the Hamas terror group announced it has agreed to release 10 hostages. The group says it's trying to work in a positive spirit with mediators to reach a ceasefire in Gaza. It says other key points remain under discussion, including the flow of aid and Israeli troop withdrawals. Israeli officials have reported that around 50 hostages remain captive, including 49 seized in the October 7th attack. Although less than half are thought to be alive. The body of Hadar Golden, killed in 2014, has also yet to be returned. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to continue the 21-month war until Hamas is destroyed. Israeli officials have said they want to keep troops in the southern corridor of the Gaza Strip, a condition that Hamas opposes. Britain and France have agreed to a groundbreaking one-in, one-out migrant policy to help tackle Britain's cross-channel illegal immigrant crisis. The two nations hope it will act as a deterrent. But a British opposition minister says the scheme is too mild and will fail to achieve this aim. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hassan has more on this.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron agreed to a landmark migrant exchange deal. It seeks to tackle the small boat illegal immigrant crisis facing the UK.
We face a sprawling, multi-billion-pound enterprise run by organised criminal gangs, leading hundreds of people to their death in the Channel. So we're determined, together, to end this vile trade.
Under the deal, Britain can send illegal immigrants who arrived by small boat back to France. In exchange, the UK will receive an asylum seeker who has not tried to enter illegally. Starmer called this one-in, one-out system a breakthrough moment.
This will show others trying to make the same journey that it will be in vain, and the jobs they've been promised in the UK will no longer exist because of the nationwide crackdown we're delivering on illegal working.
Macron blamed Brexit for the UK's migrant crisis.
A lot of people from your country explained that Brexit would allow to efficiently fight against illegal immigration. Simply put, it is since Brexit that the United Kingdom no longer has a migration agreement with the European Union.
A pilot program will start on Friday. It's been reported only 50 illegal immigrants will be sent back each week. For comparison, 44,000 have arrived in the last year, or around 850 each week. Opposition Home Secretary Chris Philp said it's not going to be a deterrent.
That represents only 6% of those arriving. What that means is that Keir Starmer is saying 94% of illegal immigrants, 16 in every 17, can stay in the UK.
France and Britain also signed a declaration to agree to coordinate their nuclear deterrence. France and Britain are the only two European nations with nuclear weapons. Earlier in the day, the two hosted a Coalition of the Willing meeting, the proposed peacekeeping force to help Ukraine in a post-war future. They said the coalition is ready to go once a ceasefire is agreed.
So whilst this coalition will continue to stand ready to support a future peace, as leaders, we should shift our work in this group from preparing for peace to making it happen.
Under the coalition plans, troops from France and the UK would be placed in Ukraine, while other countries would provide logistical support, all with the aim of deterring further Russian aggression. European leaders have insisted the arrangement would be dependent upon an American security guarantee, likely in the form of air support. President Trump has been unwilling to commit to this, but in a signal of changing attitudes in Washington, Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, joined the coalition of the willing meeting, a first for any member of Trump's administration. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
Ireland's powerful Data Protection Commission has opened a new probe into TikTok. The investigation will examine the storage of European users' data in China. The short video platform disclosed in April that some data had temporarily been stored on Chinese servers. TikTok is owned by China's ByteDance. The Irish Commission fined TikTok $620 million in May over concerns about how it protects European users' information. Concerns include the ability of staff in China to remotely access some of that data. On top of new tariff announcements on several countries, President Trump says copper will be slapped with a 50% tariff. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley joins us. Jack, good afternoon. Why is Trump taxing copper imports? And also, he's hitting Brazil with a 50% tariff as well. What is the latest there?
Right, so let's start with Brazil, Don. As far as Brazil, the current president, Trump is saying that the current president of Brazil is going after the former president, Jair Bolsonaro, in terms of accusing Bolsonaro of attempting a coup, all of which Trump says is a witch hunt against the former president. And at one point, his ally, a staunch conservative, and he calls the current president of Brazil carrying this out. Now, Trump says that the Supreme Court as well in Brazil has been censoring social media from the U.S. And on top of that, there's been non-tariff and tariff trade barriers on the U.S. imposed from Brazil, according to the president, for years. And so all of that has added up to this 50% tariff marker from the U.S. Brazil's president, Silva, says that these will be reciprocated on the U.S., but Trump says in his order that any reciprocation or retaliation from Brazil will be met and tacked on to the current 50%. Now, on copper, that's also a 50% tariff, also going into effect August 1st. With that, President Trump posted on X, on social media, Truth. He said copper is necessary for semiconductors, aircraft, ships, ammunition, data centers, lithium-ion batteries, radar systems, missile defense systems, and even hypersonic weapons, of which we are building many. Copper is the second most used material by the Department of Defense. So obviously, a big national security issue to the president here.
And Jack, this weekend marks the one-year anniversary of the attempted assassination of President Trump at the Butler, Pennsylvania rally, and that's as the Secret Service is announcing they've suspended 6 agents without pay in retaliation. What is the latest there?
Sure. So the 6 agents, that was announced by the current deputy, Secret Service deputy in charge, telling CBS yesterday that the 6 agents faced up to 45 days of suspension, and they're working on changing different kinds of technology in the way that law enforcement communicates with each other. This was the rally at which President Trump was speaking when a bullet went right by his ear, injuring him in the process, and also many other bullets killing the firefighter Corey Comparator, as well as injuring 2 others at his rally. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem this morning was on Fox and Friends discussing this. Let's take a look.
The Secret Service has a totally different leadership team now than what they did before. And have gone through, and this report has now just been released. I know that President Trump has told me that he's satisfied with it.
So Noem also added there that the big, beautiful bill that passed is going to help provide more funding to the Secret Service in terms of training, getting new drone technology, as well as counter-drone technology. And for these kinds of events, there will be better communication between federal and local law enforcement. Don?
And Jack, a federal judge is blocking Trump's executive order from ending birthright citizenship. That's just weeks after the Supreme Court limited judges' ability to issue such nationwide rulings. Break this down for us.
Sure. So today, a federal judge issued a ruling kind of going against the Supreme Court order, which came out weeks ago, saying that all of the injunctions against President Trump, these nationwide federal injunctions, these federal judges don't have the authority to issue such court orders. And here we have another federal judge doing just that, blocking President Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship that he issued back in January, which means that if you are a person born in the U.S., your parents are illegal immigrants, then you get automatic birthright citizenship. You're a U.S. citizen by fault of that. Trump wanted to end that, but in doing so in January, he was blocked by several judges' orders, and this all went all the way to the high court when they finally decided that all of Trump's federal injunctions against him, not just the birthright citizenship order, but other executive orders, were all null and void, as these federal judges were found not to have such authority. Here we have another federal judge doing just that. And so there's going to be likely an appeal going forward here, and we will just have to see how this plays out. This has to do with the issue of the 14th Amendment. And so we have both sides arguing that the text of the 14th Amendment does or does not provide for birthright citizenship. So we'll just have to stay tuned on that, Don.
Okay, Jack, thank you so much for that. Coming up, the world's most famous pygmy hippopotamus celebrates her first birthday at a Thailand zoo. More on Mu Deng's happy moments after the break.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week. Still couldn't pay the bills. Skipped meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 kids face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive, and they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for kids facing hunger this summer.
One day, my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay," and I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of children facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org. Working together, we can end hunger in America.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422. 800-210-6422.
A global superstar turns one today. A zoo in Thailand held a birthday celebration for a baby pygmy hippo named Mu Dung. Mu Dung literally means bouncy pork in Thai. It's a type of meatball. The name was chosen by fans through a social media poll. The Thai zoo has seen spikes of visitors since shortly after Mu Dung was born. She became an internet superstar largely thanks to her keeper, who keeps the internet updated with moments of her daily activities. According to the zoo's director, the zoo has been getting around 2,000 visitors on weekdays and about 5,000 on weekends. Mu Dung fans explain her appeal. Take a listen.
Mu Dung is my happy pill, and she's my energy pill, my curing pill. She's my vitamin. Mu Dung has brought a lot of happiness to each and every one, whether it be a heartbreak or, somebody recovering from illness. So she's just a potato, a moist potato that has bursts of chaotic and calm energy at the same time.
Everything I was seeing started to be Mu Dung, and I just loved her so much and decided, you know what, I have 3 or 4 days off of work. I can make it work to fly to Thailand. I will only be there for about 30 hours, but that's enough to go see Mu Dung, and that's exactly what I did.
For her birthday, a large cake made of fruits and vegetables was brought into her enclosure. At first, Mu Dung did not appear hungry, preferring to lounge in the cool water. But once her mom began chewing on the fruits and vegetables, she soon joined in to the crowd's delight. The zoo is holding 4 days of activities for Mu Dung's birthday starting today. Children under 12 can enter the zoo for free throughout the period. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano erupted yesterday, sending a fountain of lava shooting into the air. Video from the United States Geological Survey recorded the moment. Local reports cited the Hawaii Volcano Observatory as saying the volcano began the main fountaining event at around 4 a.m. Fountains initially reached about 150 feet but climbed to around 1,200 feet. According to the reports, the latest eruption episode paused abruptly at around 1 p.m. after about 9 hours of continuous lava fountaining. Coming up, the U.S. has spent 2 years' worth of production of Tomahawk missiles this year so far, significantly depleting its stockpiles. Find out what Congress plans to do after the break.
£6 prescription glasses from Select Specs are always great value. There are no offer codes or first-time customers only. Anyone can buy them, anytime. And you can upgrade to Select Specs Express for next-day delivery. And with deferred payment, you can spread the cost.
See now, pay later with Select Specs £6 specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options available at selectspecs.com/£6.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough, but Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or